Army attacks a court disco over power outage. You find details of that on page 3 of the Guardian as well. And moving on, we move on to the Punch. The Punch is a story: House subsidy removal, tension worsened, J's of fuel scarcity. A few marketers decry closure of stations at border towns. Citizens demand more Nigerian goods. Alright, you find details of that on page 35 of the Punch this morning. Still on the Punch, we have the story: budget letter. Rivers Assembly differ. Fubara urges House to reconvene. Well, you find details of that on page 44 of the Punch newspaper. And still on the Punch, we have the story: Shake ready to buy me house, says father. Baby mama alleges neglect. You find the story on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper this morning. And this one: governors lobby Tinubu to block local government direct payment. Would that be a move backwards? Yes, moving forward. Alright, details of that is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper this morning. And we have this story: 59 killed, 155 hospitalized in Macedonia nightclub fire. And the sad one, the details is on page 44 of the Punch newspaper. And from the Punch, the Nation. On the Nation, Lamido, El-Rufai driven by emotion. Say, El-Rufai is driven by emotion. You find the story on page 5 of the Nation. Akpabio's cooperation and collaboration practice embody our democracy. But, that must be the position of Senator Jimoh Ibrahim there. You find the details of that on the Nation. Maybe I should read some for you. The Senator Godswill Akpabio's liberalism thesis on managing the Nigerian 10th Assembly presents a significant historical accounts of political stabilization, promoting democratic peace and fostering cooperation and collaboration that are often evident within the Nigerian National Assembly. Well, I think this is the coming on the eaves of the Akpabio-Natasha saga. Alright, get a copy of the Nation. It's broadly there on the front page, and to some of the inner pages there for the read of that story. And on the New Telegraph, why Akpabio-Natasha face-off can affect tax reform bill's passage by OPS. Well, the sexual harassment allegation: why Akpabio-Natasha face-off can affect tax reform bill's passage. That's by OPS. Alright, let's see the riders to the story. Say, raises the alarm over major bill's abandonment. Sarah sues Akpabio over Natasha's suspension. You find details of that on pages 4 and 26 of the New Telegraph this morning. And so on the New Telegraph, compel Fubara to present budget, Assembly tells citizens. Compel Fubara to present budget, Assembly tells citizens. Or like, but Fubara will argue that it wasn't this way to present the budget, and the State Assembly was barricaded. That was sometime last week. So, while you check the details of that story on page 2, because debunks claim it received governor's letter, says lawmakers, I have seen hell. Well, who has seen hell? Check page 2 of the New Telegraph for details of that story. El-Rufai rallies opposition against Tinubu for 2027. Alright, El-Rufai rallies opposition against Tinubu for 2027. Alright, it says Sule Lamido, El-Rufai's invite. El-Rufai invites me for El-Rufai's invite for me to join SDP. An insult. Why is it an insult? Okay, we've learned from PDP APC's mistakes. You find details of that on pages 5 and 7 of the New Telegraph this morning. And so on the New Telegraph, diphtheria kills 1,319 and 42,000 suspected cases reported. Find details of that on page 26 of the New Telegraph. Federal government investors boost Nigerian sugar market to $2.03 billion. The details of that is on page 17 of the New Telegraph. And on the New Telegraph too, refs recovered 28.7 billion naira from 2 oil firms in 1 week. Well, you see, laudable. Alright, you find details of these on pages 2 and 20 of the New Telegraph. Attack on National Working Committee, Wike's utterances, PDP. Alright, you find details of this on page 2 of the New Telegraph. Obowevery's impressive records of settling opposition, says Anyabu. The details of that is on page 7 of the New Telegraph. Trump moves, that's on page 5. And right into the story says 59 dead, 155 injured in North Macedonia's nightclub fire. That's you find on the New Telegraph this morning. And this one of employees, that one is on page 8 of the New Telegraph. And so on the New Telegraph, here we have this story. I think I've taken that. Alright, a rape victim debunks protesters' claim she's dead. Okay, you find this on page 5 of the New Telegraph. And as committee refutes allegation of recent mass killings and arson. That's way away from the New Telegraph. And we get to check the Daily Independent. On the Daily Independent, we have this. We have been battered. There's Rivers crisis. We have been battered. Endured immense hardship, says the Assembly. Says Fubara frustrating implementation of Supreme Court judgment. Alright, the details of this is on the front page of the Daily Independent here. And we also have the story. EU plans expansion of £820 million digital support for Nigeria by 2025. You find details of that on page 7. And we have this. KDC accuses soldiers of attacking workers over power outage. Find details on page 4 of the Daily Independent this morning. Sarab sues Akpabio for failing to reverse Natasha's suspension. That also is on the front page of the Daily Independent this morning. And this we have here. NAFDAC evacuates 100 truckloads of fake drugs from major markets. You find details of that on the front page of the Independent as well. Sanitize, save PDP by expelling VK, the National Working Committee charged. Right, details of that is on the front page to some of the inner pages there on the Daily Independent for this morning. Refs recovered 28.7 billion naira outstanding revenues from oil coils. details is on page 7 of Stop Threatening Nigerians. That Amnesty International tells the federal government. And that's we eat from the Daily Independent. Let's take some sporting stories from the Punch Sport Extra. The Punch Sports Extra this morning has the stories. Catch us if you can, says who? You find details of that on page 7 of the Punch Sports Extra this morning. Says Ramon maintain MPFL lead as title rivals chase with contrasting forms. Alright, and this Anthony blames weather for poor United spell. Details of that you find on page 3 of the Punch Sports Extra. Bolaji wins para badminton gold again in Spain. That is on page 2. Another World Cup, says Umero. You find details of that on page 6 of the Punch Sports Extra this morning. As I know, eyes you see out with Forest. You find details of that on page 7 of the Punch Sports Extra. And with that, with a short break, and when we return, we'll be back with our guest for the discussion of the day. Don't go away.
Leadership is not a package where you take it and say, here it is, I give you the package. Leadership comes how you live, what have you acquired in terms of your training, your experience, your track record, and all that. And what I'm saying is that the young people must strive. They shouldn't expect it to be a parcel delivered by DHL to them. And they must know that nothing comes just for nothing. You work for it.
It's nice to know you are still with us on AM today. This morning, just as I promised before we went on that break, that we'll be looking at something that concerns our workers. Yes, either you're a private self-employed person or you're working for an employee. You're concerned about your retirement benefits. After all, how well managed it is, how soon you get it, and all of that. It's been managed. So this morning, I've got the Director General on the State's Pension Commission, Mr. Babatunde Adefusi Owate, in the House, and we'll be looking at pension management in Nigeria generally when we're circling on the state. Mr. Owate, it's nice to have you.
Thank you.
All right. On the State's Pension Commission, the state used to have the pension board. Yes, what differentiates you from the pension board?
Okay. At the moment, we have 3 pension institutions managing pensions in Ondo State. There is the Ondo State Pension Commission, where I see it as the Director General. There is the Pension Transition Department for state. There is also the Pension Transition Department for local government. The 2 pension transition departments are managing the old scheme, which we call the defined benefit scheme. For us in the Pension Commission, we manage the contributory pension scheme, which is the new one.
Which is the new one. So it's safe to say that with time, the other 2 may face off for your commission.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, you have some workers fall within the range of the contributory pension scheme, because the old staff probably are not into that scheme. So why the need to migrate? Couldn't just be some kind of let me say improvement from the old? Was the need? Why was the need?
The
really separate.
The improvement on the old is actually what gave birth to the contributory pension scheme. Don't forget where we're coming from. We have issues of delayed payment of retirement benefits. We have issues of corruption and also within the pension scheme relating to the old scheme. There are so many issues fraught with why things are not working well with the defined benefit scheme, which is what gave birth to the contributory pension scheme. That was done in 2004 under President Olusegun. And I can tell you that is the person that got of the pension ecosystem.
We've had stories in the past where pension managers, mismanaged the contributory pension, there are certain, I wouldn't want to mention that, there are certain organizations, that are managing some workforce pension, and before we had stories of embezzlement and all of that. And this affected people's trust, especially in the contributory, in fact, even in the pension scheme as it were.
That is for the defined, the old scheme.
Okay.
The new scheme, which is the contributory pension scheme, is so structured that pension funds, pension assets can never be tampered with. And the SPENCO, which is national body that regulates it, and down at the state level, we have the state bureaus managing contributory pension scheme.
Right. So apart from government workers, can private individuals approach you and say, "Oh, I run a social business, and I would like you to create, do I fit into your scheme? Is there a package for self-employed people?"
Yes, and those are part of the things that we tried to correct in the old pension scheme. You cannot be part of the old pension scheme unless you are an employee. But in the contributory pension scheme, there is a window, you understand. PENCOM has introduced that, but it has some challenges. They are working on the framework, and I'm sure very, very soon we are going to roll it out again better and more structured.
More structured, but for now, are you accommodating them for now?
Yes, there are some people, like I said, PENCOM had rolled it out some years ago, but the traction, the success level is not at the level that PENCOM had stated. That's why they need to call it back and trying to review and structure to make it better. The underline is that we want people in the informal sector, because whether you like it or not, the informal sector is the largest. The people in employment in the informal sector is much more than the formal sector. So we are looking at a situation where even if you are in the informal sector, by the time you retire, you retire to, please. We don't want a situation where people will retire and start struggling and suffering and everything.
That would be nice. I bet that the viewer out there will be looking at chances of, enjoying such benefits as well. But then let's look at it this way. For instance, I've heard stories of under this contributory pension scheme, you don't get to have your pay at once. How does it work? There are people who worked for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
They changed their work environment, so they're not working for the establishment again, they move on to another one. There are some people who did not work for 35 years, which says they're due for pension. What happens to the amount they contributed, before leaving?
The contributory pension scheme, like, if you're working with Osrc today and you decide that you want to keep the pension commission, you don't need to have a new pay. You understand? Your contributions continue with your new employer. And look at it. When people retire in the contributory pension scheme, there are two ways of settling people. There is the program withdrawals, there is the annuity. I will not go too much into that. But for program withdrawal, as at the time you retire, there is what we call lump sum, based on what you have saved up. Don't forget, it is CPS, Contributory Pension Scheme, a situation where both employer and employee comes together to contribute towards the retirement. And by the pension law, both at the national and at the state, it's 18%. 8% of your gross element or basic rent and transport will establish the 8%. Government will match it with 10%. So on a monthly basis, 18% must go into your retirement savings account if you are in the contributory scheme. And the beauty is that for every day that money sits in your account, it accrues interest. So whatever it is that you have been able to pull together for the number of years that you are in the contributory pension scheme, that determines to a large extent what you take over. In lump sum, then you'll now do withdrawals, program withdrawals for as long as you live. That is why we also encourage that there is no amount of money you can contribute, or 8% or 10% match with government, that will likely be enough. We're also encouraging voluntary contribution.
So I can decide to add to what is being deducted from my salary now.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's an initiative that we have started with. I want to give the type of publicity that it deserves, so that civil servants in Ondo State can key into it, save towards their retirement, and have a blissful life.
So, for instance, maybe it's 10,000 that is being deducted as contributory pension, from the payroll initially.
Yeah.
So you can, as a worker, you can decide to meet your finance department and say, oh, I want it increased, or the person needs to come to your office and not through their establishment to affect that.
You write to the Pension Commission through the head of your agency, stating clearly how much you want to be deducted and everything on your behalf extra. So by the time we get that letter, we'll process.
All right, so the pension that is being, the money, let's say, that is being deducted,
Yes.
assumably, is the commission is trading with it, right?
It
Doing
is.
business with it.
It is not the commission that trades with it.
But the commission releases it to some other
Yes.
agencies that trade with it.
Yeah.
So that's why I would get an interest on that. But there was a day, everybody said, this money, why can't we have access to it? Probably, should be able to loan from it too.
Yes, it's possible. But let me talk about the investment. When contributions are put together, it is limited to the PFCs on behalf of the PFA. When I say PFC, I mean pension fund custodians. And the
Which
other,
you are?
No, we are not. They are financial institutions.
Okay.
You understand? Licensed to hold pension assets. Pension fund custodians. We have 3 in Nigeria: Zenith, UBA, and First Custodians. They are the licensed pension funds custodians that we have in the country. Then we have PFEs. Of course, we have 17 of them. The Fidelity Pensions, the ARM, the Dream, a whole lot of them. 17 of them licensed to do the business of pension. So for us in the Pension Commission, we remit contributions on behalf of civil servants in Ondo State that are on the contributory pension scheme. So by the time we transfer to the PFCs on behalf of the PFAs. The PFAs don't have access to these funds. And that is the beauty of this whole thing. That's why I believe that pension funds are so very, very secure now. PENCOM is working every day to ensure that there is security of these pension assets. So what the PFA does is to give the PFCs instructions as to how these funds will be invested. And mind you, there is an investment framework already determined by PENCOM. You can register, you can invest funds in bonds, federal government bonds.
So apart from the deductions, you can also...
The deductions is what is going to be limited now. You know, when these monies are limited to them, they don't just keep it somewhere. You, that's the contribution, you contributor, you expect that at the end of the day, your investment or your remittances into your RSC continues to grow. In fact, it doubles that on a daily basis. So, but how will it grow if they keep the funds somewhere? So what they do is to invest those funds in investments that are very secure, so that at the end of the day, interest will accrue and your RSA balances continue to grow.
Okay, the other parts that I asked you, that as individuals, as workers, you know, on the contributory pension scheme,
Yeah.
can we access loans or?
Yes, you can.
How?
At the moment, it is only 25% mortgage loan that you can access. Don't forget, RSA means retirement savings account. The whole idea is to be able to access those funds upon retirement. You know, between you and I, we all have a savings account in the banks.
Yeah.
You say, okay, I want to be keeping certain monies aside in my savings account. I tell you when you are pressed. Even when there is no ATM card on that account, you likely just rush to bank to pull that money out. But PENCOM came with this idea of having an account, but with limited or restricted access to it. Before now, you can't even access it unless you're out of work. That is part of the beauty of the CPS. If you have been on the CPS for some time and you are out of work, after 3 or 4 months, you can write to PENCOM. But I'm out of work at the moment. I want to access part of my retirement savings balance. And you'll be allowed to access 25%. You understand? So PENCOM now came again to say, look, because PENCOM had realized that in retirement, most people now try to settle for mortgage. Most people likely do not have houses and the time they retire. So the idea is, why should you wait until retirement? You can access 25% of what you have contributed for mortgage.
And do you facilitate that for them?
The PFAs will do that, but we can guide you in the pension commission.
All right, and that's one of the thoughts of pension contributors.
Yeah.
That how do we access this and all of that? But for people who change, who change from one work to the other. For instance, we're working with government, you move to a private one. Do you just take your pin, right?
It doesn't stop anything.
It doesn't stop.
I was not working
Well, what if
before.
you're not interested anymore? You just feel like, okay, I'm not going to work. I'm not working with government again. I'm not working for anybody. Can I get my money?
You can, based on certain conditions. Yeah.
Can we know the terms?
For instance, in the state, there are people that work in the sector. You know, the rate of relocation for people in the sector is so high. Nurses, doctors, the travel abroad for greener pastures. So, but we have instances where some of them are already on the scale. They are no longer working in Nigeria, and they want to access. The law states that you can access those funds if you are not up to 50. You can still access those funds. So you claim that you prove that you are out of employment, you want to access, we will give you 25% of what you have contributed. The idea is that it is upon retirement that you'll be able to access whatever it is that you have contributed into the contributory pension scheme.
Okay, so you give 25% or whatever is there in the first instance. So what happens? How do you then get the subsequent pay? How will the contributor get it? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly?
Upon
or
retirement.
Upon retirement. So upon retirement you get everything at once?
No, it's not once.
Okay.
See, the new scheme is structured in such a way that when you are out of employment, you'll still be able to at least live the same standard of life that you were living as at when you were in employment. So the money will not be given to you in bulk, except if it is very, very low. If what you have contributed is low, The system can pack it up and give it to you. But when the money is reasonable, the idea is that you will be paid, depending on what you are doing with your PFAs, monthly or quarterly, until you check out.
Until we check out. Okay, now let's say, what are you doing in your commission to build the people's trust, in these schemes? Well, most of the time, you start with people who are in regulated employment, like government officials. You do not have a say. It's statutory once you're under this employment that you have to, be under the scheme. But for people who are into private practice and even employers of labor may think, oh, for my staff, I want them to be under this. But what are you doing to boost people's confidence in the scheme?
Basically, sensitization.
Sensitization.
Sensitize people on the benefits of being on the CPS. And like I told you, the micro pension plan, which is supposed to address people in the informal sector, is presently being reviewed. When it is rolled out, we'll be working with organized informal sector, the artisans, all these other people that are not into structured employment, to see how we can bring them into the pension space. Yeah.
So tell us more about the benefits that people stand to gain.
A lot. I've said a lot.
You said a lot. I just want you to reiterate so that the person out there just gets it clear and,
Importantly, life after retirement will be better and blissful if you are on the contributory pension scheme. Don't forget, I mentioned earlier that what you get at retirement is a function of what you have been able to put up when you are in active service. It's easy, you can still run around now, you can still make some money, but what happens when you retire? That is why it is encouraged that you must focus on the growth in your retirement savings balance. And contributors have obligations. I'm a civil servant in Ondo State, for instance. You do not receive alert, you do not receive emails, and you are comfortable. You should not be comfortable. That's your own obligation. You must, on monthly basis or quarterly basis, or data recapture exercise. That has been on in the contributory pension space for some time. The whole idea is that for people that have been registered under the scheme before June 2019, there is a tendency that the information they supplied is not adequate. Hence the need for you to go back, see your PFAs, make your PFAs, do another data recapture. There are documents that are required, your letter of appointment, your name, BVN, all those details are necessary. You understand? Your email, so that at the end of the day, when we remit for you from the Pension Commission on a monthly basis, you will get alerts. If the phone number that you used to register some years ago, if you are no longer using it, there is a tendency that, in fact, it's sure that you cannot get alerts when transactions are done on your account. If the email you used to register some years ago, if you are no longer accessing it, it means that even when they send information to you, you will not be able to access it. So it's important that we visit our PFAs to update our information with these PFAs. And at the end of the day, we will be able to monitor things that are happening around our RSC. And if there are issues, the Pension Commission is always open to welcome complaints and resolve them.
And to resolve them, yes. I have a question here. That how is the retirement benefits calculated in Nigeria? How do you get to know that, oh, this is what it's going to be worth after I retire? How do you do the calculations? How do you know this is how much I'll likely get? Are you the ones that do it for the retirees or other?
The PFAs do it. There is already a structure designed by PENCO, which the PFAs are adopting in rendering or giving out retirement benefits. But like I keep saying, it's garbage in, garbage out. What you get at retirement is a function of what you have been able to contribute into the system. Don't forget, even in normal investments, somebody that invested 1 million and somebody that invested 100,000, at the end of the day, returns will not be the same. So the much that you're able to put into your retirement savings account before you retire is what determines what you will get upon retirement. So it can't give you.
It can't be all smooth. You make it seem like there are no challenges to this thing. So what are those likely gray areas, in pension management as it is right now.
Yeah, there are challenges. And for me, the biggest is the inability to accommodate people in the informal sector. Don't forget I told you
Yes, so
that people in the informal sector, they are even much more than people in the formal sector. So if we can do more to bring in more people, sensitize them, educate them, let them understand that this is the new thing that you need to do if you are looking at retirement. The generation that we have now, the Gen Zs, they don't care. I am telling you, they don't care. So for us to avoid a situation where a lot of parents retire and begin to struggle to live, it is important that we focus on what the CPS can offer. So that challenge about the informal sector is something that it's important, and I'm sure PENCOM and state bureaus are looking into it. And by the time that is done, we are launching out massively in the state to make sure that we bring in more people onto the contributory pension scheme, especially in the informal sector. Because for former, it is straightforward. If you join Ondo State Civil Service today, you will be registered in the contributory pension scheme. And let me also tell you, one of the benefits again, by law, it is expected that every contributor on the pension scheme is insured 300% of the emolument. You understand? Should in case the person passes on, that emolument will create envelope to the family. And kudos to our done by the pension commission to process your insurance benefits for you. And the other side of it, which is what you have been able to save up for checking out, we will also ensure that you get it. In fact, part of the things we have done is to restructure the commission for efficient service delivery to ensure that retirement benefits don't delay. And it's just as if PENCOM knew that I'm coming here today. A policy statement was released just last week on retirement benefits payment because of the perceived delay that has been established. But what PENCOM has done is, look, before now, if somebody is retiring and want to pay, the PFA will have to get approval from National PENCOM in Abuja. National PENCOM has said, no, we will just do oversight now. At the PFA level, you can pay your retirement benefits within 2 days.
So you don't have to wait.
You don't have to wait. So it's like just tuning down the bureaucracy to make the system more efficient.
Talking about tuning down the bureaucracy and enhancing efficiency, it is not uncommon in Nigeria to find that sometimes, even in payments of salaries, certain employers, they default. You understand? So what do you do when the employer, be it government or private, is defaulting in paying their own portion of the contribution?
Yeah, that is where enforcement comes in. That's where enforcement comes in. And
do you have the right to enforce?
We have the right to enforce. And let me also tell you that there is a penalty. 7 working days after payment of salary, every employer is duty bound to remit to the PFC or the PFA. So if after 7 working days after payment of salary, you have not done that, you are contravening the law, and it comes with a penalty. So part of what we are also looking at is enforcing it to the letter, especially in the private sector in Ondo State. Protect the interest of workers in the private sector in Ondo State.
Okay. Yeah. Since you say you have the power to enforce, that means efficiency that will be enhanced. And then let's say there are certain instances, for instance, you have workers, seeing the allowed for payment of pension of some previous years, some months distorted and all of that. Is that a fault from your commission, or could it be the employer's fault? That is, the salary and the pension deductions are not at par. There are differences of months and
I doubt
it is happening.
I doubt it is happening. But if you have instances like that, that is why the pension commission exists, especially for workers on the contributory pension scheme. Come to us. We'll sort it out.
Individual worker could work to your office and lay complaints?
We are there. That's why we're there, to serve the people, especially people on the scheme. Absolute right to work it, and we'll ensure that your issues are resolved.
All right, thank you very much. Let's also talk about the regulation now.
Yes.
What is the role of the National Pension Commissioner in regulating the others in the states and all of that? And to what extent, like you said already, they've given you certain power to do some things, without referring to the national budget. What other things do you have the capacity of handling in isolation of PENCOM at the national level?
Well, PENCOM at the national level superintends over the 36 state pension bureaus and Abuja, and to a very large extent, we derive powers. We derive powers and guidance, regulations from them. We don't operate in isolation. And I can tell you from 2004 that we are moving to CPS, which is the reform in the pension space. Things are gotten better.
All right, just before I let you go, I'd like you to look into the camera and tell the people of Ondo State what your commission is having in stock, for the workers, both in the regulated, that's the formal and the informal sector, the kind of companies that can bring to your office, what you are serving us generally.
Okay. To the people of Ondo State, the Pension Commission exists to serve you, especially civil servants that are on the contributory pension scheme. And like I said earlier, there are benefits that accrues to individuals when you are on the contributory pension scheme. The whole idea is to ensure that upon retirement, you still live the type of life that you're living when you are still in the workforce. The whole idea is to ensure that retirement is blissful. And there are so many other things. Like I mentioned earlier, the issue of voluntary contribution is what we are pushing in the Commission to drive, so that we can encourage people to contribute more. It's your money. It's absolutely yours. So if you desire a better life in retirement, it is important that you save towards it. I mentioned earlier the issue of mortgage, which is a function of what you have contributed, 25% which you can access to go into mortgage. And there are so many other things that we are looking at. Micro pension plan for people in the informal sector is also a baby that we are trying to nurture. If we can get that in those states, considering the fact that people in the informal sector are much more higher than people in the formal sector, we will be fine. And even in the civil service, don't forget, it is not every civil servant in Ondo State that is on the contributory pension scheme. There are some that are still on the old scheme, the defined benefit scheme. The idea is to reach out to them. They also key into the system in form of voluntary contribution.
Oh, so those people also stand a chance.
They do.
There
is a window for them to come in.
Okay.
There is a window for them to come in. So if they come in and do voluntary contribution, in fact, the laws have been so relaxed that if you are doing voluntary contribution, after 1 year, you can access part of what you have saved up.
So that means that retirees can also key in.
No, you have retired.
They're collecting their...
What you are collecting is not to be saved up as a retiree.
Okay.
It's to enjoy life in retirement. However, if you have retired, like in civil service, you have retired, and you got another form of employment, that you're still earning salaries or wages, as the case may be, on monthly basis, you can still decide to be putting something aside into your RSA, but you are not expected to plow back
your gratuity
what you have what have been paid you from the RSA. It is not expected that you plow it back into the system.
Okay.
It's for you to be enjoying your life at that time.
Okay. Yes, you mentioned on a monthly basis. Does that mean that there is no room for people and probably per hour, per week? So
as long as it's structured.
It has to be consistent.
You cannot be a contractor in retirement, and it will be a bit difficult to come into the contributory scheme. Because the whole idea too is to ensure that there is no money.
Okay.
Money is not being loaned out through the scheme. So, in fact, even this voluntary contribution that we're talking about, most times is the employer that drives it. We don't expect you to be paying directly to the scheme. It's not possible.
Well, I'm my self-employer.
Is it?
What if I'm myself a player? I am self-employed and I want to secure
That is the micro pension. It's different from
the major
the
one.
key CPS.
All right, we keep this conversation open. Maybe some other time for you to come and shed light on new things that you're doing in the pension board or pension commission. Pardon me, yes. What you're doing in the pension commission. They say it's better, you get something saved, no matter how little, as long as you earn, because there is need to save for the rainy day. So some would say, well, you saved 10 naira, but you borrowed 20 naira. Well, what use is that? Well, but they still need, to save. And my dear viewer, we've been engaging the Director General on the State Pension Commission, Mr. Babatunde Adefusi Owate. Today, we looked at the challenges and prospects of pension payment in Nigeria. Thank you very much for coming on the show. This next time we'll have you too. Alright, my dear viewer, this is Alpha who will be going on the show for today, and I believe that you've learned one or two